All right, go
All
ahead.
right, I am going to call the Thursday, July 15th, 2021 meeting of the Southborough EDC to order at 7:30. It's the last time I think I have to read this. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15th order, March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Economic Development Committee will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members in the public and parties of the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So even if I didn't need to read that, I'd rather err on the side of caution and read it instead of somebody saying, you didn't read it. So anyway, that's done. All right. First, I called it to order. So first things first, I'd like to welcome Mr. Berger to the EDC. He was sworn in at the selectmen's meeting the other night, and he's decided to volunteer, and I'm so excited to be here. I know you applied like a year ago. Sorry it took so long, and thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no worries. Glad to be part of it.
I'll introduce you. But Marika is our EDC coordinator extraordinaire. She handles pretty much everything we do, and she's available to everyone. And she sends out all of our meeting stuff. She sends out all of our information and newsletter. I don't know if you saw the newsletters from the EDC that she sends out monthly, saying what we've been up to. And we're trying to, she sends it off to all of the other committee members and committees in the hopes that we can have a more collaborative effort moving forward, because instead of people thinking that this is an EDC project on anything we do, that it's more of a townwide thing. So it's for the town. Then you have Julie Connolly, next, who's been here since the inception. She actually helped start it, and she has been chair a couple of times and vice chair and this, that, and the other thing. Next is Michael Moorhead. He's been on about 3 years now, Michael? 2-3 years, anyway.
Yeah, year and a half.
Okay. And
Feels like 3.
Yeah, he's
No?
our expert architect if we have any problems with that. And then Rob Anderson is here as well. Rob's my go-to guy, and soon I'm going to be his go-to guy. Rob, what is it exactly that you do, Rob?
I work for a statewide economic development organization called Mass Development. So I've been doing economic development in the state for close to 20 years.
Thank you. And then Chris Robbins down there. Chris has been on even before it started. Chris was trying to get some type of an economic development committee started and worked against the split tax rate and been here for years. And Chris is awesome. I'll let everybody else introduce themselves and say anything else they want to. But what about you? What made you want to join the EDC?
Well, so I have a background in private equity and commercial real estate, but I've recently become a financial advisor, and I work for a number of companies and travel pretty extensively in my career. During the time, the 22 years I lived in Southborough, and this is really the first time in the last 18 months that I've spent, a lot of time, really all of my time in town. And at this point in my career, decided, I'm starting my own solo business, and it's based locally, and it seemed like an appropriate time to get more involved in the town. I've been, as I said, I've lived here for 22 years. I got 3 kids here. I've coached soccer in town for 12 years, finally ending this past season. So I've been involved in some capacity, but not really in sort of the economic life of the town. And, I'm an MBA, CPA, as I said, I have commercial real estate background as a CFO of a couple of different companies. So I was hopeful that my skill set might be complementary to yourselves, and I might be able to add some value on this committee.
Well, I think you will. I'm happy you're here.
Definitely.
My
Yeah.
background, I was on the advisory committee for 10 years. I was chair for 3, vice chair. Then I had an unsuccessful run for selectman, which I'm kind of glad about. I ran because I've always said that, I want to try to keep our seniors to be able to live here and keep our tax rate down. And so I got to practice what I preach. So I got on the EDC about 4 years ago. And we've been working on trying to keep business, get business. And I'm going to say the last three years, with the downtown initiative, we've really been making progress with other committees, working with them and getting the word out what we're trying to do and get business on Route 9. And our business outreach is really, with Chris and Marika, has been outstanding. So the pandemic slowed it down a little bit, but I'm hoping that we can get back in swing sooner than later. So do you have any questions for any of us or any thoughts?
No, I think I'd like, this meeting and maybe the first couple meetings just to observe kind of
Sounds good.
what everybody does and how it all comes together. And, I sang for my supper for the selectmen a couple of nights ago. So I expressed some thoughts about ideas that, of course, anybody living here for long enough has certain ideas about what could be improved. And I'm no different, but I really just want to kind of sit back and listen and observe before I kind of dive into the, yeah.
Sounds great. So I see on the attendees list, I'm just going to look to see who's here. So we do have Catherine.
Yeah, I'll just move her
as
over.
well.
Sorry, I'll move her over.
So she had asked to be on our agenda tonight, and I had emailed, and then when the first draft agenda came out, I didn't have it on there because I'm a moron. And then I begged Jim and Amy to make sure it was revised and on. So thank you for coming, Catherine.
Oh, thank you for having me. Nice to see everyone tonight.
So Catherine is the chair of the Trails Committee, who does an amazing job and has some big stuff coming up on a loop, hopefully with the state. And that she's got some money she put in for the CPC, and she wanted to come tonight to talk to us to see how we can help each other with making the connectivity of downtown. So is that pretty much it in a nutshell, Catherine?
Well, that might be EDC's agenda, which I'm certainly open to. I think we've talked, Julie and I have talked in the past about something along those lines. But one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to the EDC is we're going to be putting in for a Mass Trails grant at the end of this year, early next year, assuming it's all going forward, which it has for the last few years. And we wanted to reach out to the EDC to see if we could get some support. So what we're looking for is we're going to be writing, it's a pretty big grant. So we understand you guys have some MAD grant writing skills. So we were hoping that we could maybe do some collaboration ahead of time to do some brainstorming on how we're going to approach it, and then perhaps a review at the end just to ensure we've got our T's crossed and I's dotted. That's one approach, one thing we wanted to talk about. And then the other thing is, is there anything we can do to promote trails that would work with EDC's vision of the downtown? And to your point, John, connectivity, can we write in for some signage and stuff like that might help direct people to the trails from downtown, and we can include that in the grant, for example, as some way of collaborating with EDC. We're looking to, demonstrate in our grant that we are collaborating with other organizations within town. So that's the summary of it.
So we, with the MAD grant writing skills, is Marika, followed up by Rob. The rest of the we is, I have nothing to do with it. I can take no credit. Marika and Claire, who's here somewhere, are the MAD skilled grant writers. But absolutely, I talked to Marika a little bit about it last time. And Marika, you said you had no problem with reviewing their grant.
No, I mean, I'm happy to sit down with Catherine and kind of go over it and see how to approach it. So yeah, definitely. Maybe next week I'll reach out to you and then we can set up a time and a date.
Yeah, wonderful.
I
And we're
love that you're
way ahead of the
looking-
game.
I love that you're looking for grant money, because there's so much out there, especially for trails and recreation and things like that. There's more than you know. At least I think so. Don't you, Marika? A lot of it had with the signage and different things for when you get to your trails and and those have been out. Like, what was the last one? That wasn't not the one stop. The one before
The
that.
shared streets and spaces
Yeah.
grant. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
And
would've
even
been-
some trails grants, but I guess there were some issues with, I think we weren't eligible, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of things out there. So
Yeah, the CPA money that you're referring to, John, that was passed at town meeting is actually going to be used as matching funds for the upcoming grant. So we needed that to pass, which we were grateful that the town voted to move forward with that. We needed that because the grant requires a 20% match at least of total project costs. So it will enable us to do a lot more. If we get that grant, we could leverage the town money and perhaps even not use all of it.
That's amazing. And you should, the project, you want to tell them about the project you're trying to do with that?
Yeah,
grant? 'Cause
some
it's
of you
great.
may be familiar with it because we did a lot of outreach and we've been doing outreach since last October in a number of different ways. But essentially, Southborough committed to the Burrows Loop Trail. The Burrows Loop Trail has been in play for about 10 years, 9 years, and started with Marlboro. Actually, their EDC wrote the grant that they got the Mass Trails grant to help finish the Burrows Loop in their side. So the Burrows Loop is 33 miles. It goes through all the towns, the Northborough, Westborough, Southborough. Which one am I missing?
Northborough.
Thank you. And so our section is, we refer to it as the Peninsula Trail. The other part of the Burrows Loop overlaps the existing Sudbury Reservoir Trail. So it's a little confusing in town. We have 3 trails overlapping one, but it's just what it is. And so this one gap is about 1.6 miles. It's near the Fayville Dam and it's owned by DCR. And they're going to be opening that up with a public access plan and give us access to this existing access road. So there's an existing path. We don't have to chop the trail up. But we do have to fence in some infrastructure, which is part of the reason the CPA money was required. And then we also recently got permission, and this is really exciting, to MWA owns part of the land on the other side near the Fayville Dam off of Route 30 and near Stony Brook. They are willing to consider a boardwalk that's going to, instead of asking people to walk along Route 30 to connect to the Bay Circuit Trail, which is just off the way, we're going to be able to put a boardwalk in and then cross Stony Brook with a little footbridge. So that's a massive undertaking because it's a very long boardwalk, and the boardwalk can have a little seating area, and it's near some wetlands. That's going to be a trigger for some, but and so we're going to, with permissions from conservation, we have some hurdles to work through, but we're going to be able to put a little viewing platform and things if our vision comes to be.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so it'll be great for Southborough. This is going to be a really awesome trail. Part of it's accessible. Like when the town just recently went through the accessibility study, I walked with the consultant. A half mile of the trail is paved. So the challenge is there's a couple of slopes that are not, that would disqualify the trail from being accessible. But if we move the gate up, we can get most of the trail, that paved part, to be qualified as accessible. And so people with mobility issues would be able to use this trail, at least part of it, very well. And so that's also a first for Southborough. So another plus. And then the trail itself is, it's an access road. So it's 10 to 12 feet wide, and people love not being in the woods sometimes and not being up against brush and worrying about ticks. So this would be perfect for that. And it's really quiet, so it's away from the road noise, and it's a nice stroll back there. So, and you can get nice views of the dam from the opposite side. So, and again, it connects 3 regional trails. So it's the Bay Circuit Trail, it connects to Burrows Loop and the Aqueduct Trail. And we're working with DCR and MWA to get that permitted.
I've been hiking that trail since I was 15 years old. My wife grew up on Meadow Lane,
Yeah.
and it's a great trail. I walk it with Tom and our dogs.
Shush. There's some rules here.
Oh, I've never been there.
And it's not open to the public yet. So anyone listening, not going back there.
I walked there 30 years ago when I didn't know you weren't supposed to walk there.
There you go. There you go. Course correct.
Statute of limitations is run on that. You're good.
Yeah, but Tom Marcoulio, he's on trails with her, and he's one of my best friends. And we went hiking on a trail off of Ward Street and that way. And just because someone's on trails doesn't mean they know the trail. Don't go with Tom, you will get lost. We didn't even know what town we were in anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So anyway, so yeah, we'd look to, EDC to help us if you're open to that. And then, again, we're looking to, in addition to the trail, this specific piece is add some signage throughout town. And we've, I know there's a lot of history downtown. So is there a way of kind of incorporating? I think there's been a talk about a history walk of some sort downtown. So, what could we do for trails to kind of help promote that? Can we write something into the grant to help pay for signage and whatnot, or think about a project like that that might work with this?
is
Catherine,
there,
I think this is so wonderful. And when we first started talking about downtown back years ago, like one of the pillars of it was connectivity. And then we've gotten really sucked into the zoning and the infrastructure because those are critical. But the two things that you keep hitting on were connectivity and sort of, they called it, when we did the ULI study, they called it wayfinding. So like, making it a place and all those things, like putting up signage that, that the historical signage, a little historical markers to make a history walk, or even putting signs, that's just directing to the nearest trail. All of that feeds right into exactly what we want. I feel like we've sidetracked that a little bit just because we sort of need the infrastructure piece, which is the zoning and the wastewater management piece, but that's definitely still exactly what we want and that the timing is good because hopefully we're wrapping up those other two pieces soon. So I think that's so perfect. I love it so much. And any way that we can get people to be able to get downtown without having to drive and park, and to the extent we can get trails as close as we can there and get bike racks and other ways for people to get there safely. I love all of that, and whatever we can do to help you with that's awesome.
Great.
and someday the pedestrian rock that Sam wants over Route 9, I think that would be so great to connect the north side and south side.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not go
I
too
know.
like all over the place, but all
It's a
the
nice
things
wish
we've been
list.
talking about at our last couple of meetings, especially when we've been talking about, what our sort of next projects and next, priorities after downtown. But all of that, all of those discussions, especially along Route 9, had, issues of connectivity and how do we, sort of literally bridge that gap of Route 9 and get people to be able to move around a little bit easier and get connected more. So
Yeah. So
awesome.
yeah, that's all I have. So, if there's any questions, I'll look forward to hearing from you, Marika. And the grant cycle's at the end of the year. I think they open it up in November, but, doing some preliminary thinking, maybe in prep for that would be helpful and maybe good for both committees.
If I hear of any grants, that I think could apply to you, I'll absolutely let you know, and Marika will too.
Thank you.
So
Sure.
So Catherine, just one question that I have. I've discovered on grants that I've applied to in the past that letters of support are hugely helpful from, let's say, the Board of Selectmen or even a committee like ours. Do you think that a letter of support written from the Southborough Economic Development Committee would be a useful thing to include in your grant application?
I do. And I think that you hit on a really good point. When we did our CPA application, that's exactly what we did. We went, we had lots of letters of support from different orgs. So I think to your point, it would be great if we could represent most, critical boards and commissions in town to represent to DCR that we have a lot of support. I think would be really helpful. And I know that's a benefit in most cases. So thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, if the committee would be open to doing that, that'd be great too.
be happy to. Do we need to vote on that? Does anybody know?
Can't hurt.
Yeah. Why don't we anyway? So can I make a motion? Well, can I get a motion from someone to write a letter of support for the Trails Committee's grant application?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Just one comment. I don't know if you know that Marlboro, one of the companies that came in several years ago, wanted recreational resources to be available to their employees, like trails. So that was a critical piece of why one company came to town, because I believe there was a commitment from the Marlboro to do just that. So it really is a big benefit for employees.
Yes, Chris, I'm glad you brought that up because there is near one of the terminus near the end at Route 30 in Stony Brook, Sanofi's across the street. And we have to find a way to approach them to inquire about, because it would be a benefit. This trail could benefit all of those employees. So to your point, they could just walk out and go on the trail. So I think it would be a great benefit. And we were hoping that they would allow us to share some parking, because on that side, we don't have any parking, and their lot is not usually full. So that's one synergy we're trying to explore, is just to get them on board to assist with the parking piece. But I think you bring up a good point. That's one of the benefits of trails that we've been highlighting when we had our listening session back in May, is that if you can show, I think it's good for businesses to say, even my company now at my private company is, we're looking for office space. And one of the perks is we're next, office space next to the Cochituate Rail Trail in Framingham, because our people like to get out and walk. So I'm with you on that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Chris, do we know anyone over there?
Well, we know the Economic Development Organization in Marlboro.
No, I mean Framingham for Sanofi.
Oh, Framingham,
Check your contacts. I'll see if we know anybody over there. We can help you with that. I'd be happy to.
Thank
But
you.
any more discussion? All right, I'm going to bring to a vote. I'm going to call it as I see it, as a roll call, because I don't know if we're supposed to still do roll calls, but I'd rather do it that way and err on the side of caution. Julie?
Yeah.
Rob?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Chris?
yes,
And myself? Aye, pass unanimously. Yeah, we'll write up a letter and get it over to you as quick as we
So
can.
I would just thank you very much for the vote, but I would wait on that until we get closer to the time, so that it includes the relevant information that may change and we have a better idea of the vision. So thank you. If you're okay, I'll come back to you in a few months when we're putting that together.
Works for me.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Well,
And
thank you for being here.
any questions, my contact information's on the website. If you want to reach out, feel free.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a great
Thank you
night.
for the great work you're doing.
And thank you for all your work, and good luck with your initiatives.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. All right. Next on the agenda. Members report status on the proposed downtown district zoning bylaw. Julie, I'll let you take that off on that one.
Sure. Trying to remember where we left off last time. So one big step that Marika and I have been taking is that we've reached out to the architectural firm. And did I share this already? I'm trying to remember. I don't think so. I think we were going to do this last time. So we had a meeting with the architect. He put together some preliminary. We asked him to take a look at 11 Main Street. So this is to put together some potential renderings. Just a refresher. One of the issues that had come up a few times was that the renderings that we put together a few years back that everyone really liked were done before we had a draft zoning bylaw, so they didn't necessarily meet the specifications that were going to be in the bylaw as it was right now. So we met with the land design consultants, who are the new entity. Some guys from the architects we used before had left and started their own shop, and so this is them. We had a great meeting with them, and they put together. We asked them to look at 11 Main Street, and they put together kind of what a 0.35 FAR would look like and what a 0.5 FAR would look like. It raised some really interesting questions. With a 0.35 FAR, you could get a 2-story building with a in that space. With a 0.5, you could get a 3-story building. One of the issues, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to pull up my notes real quick, was that one of the issues is that there's one part of the new zoning bylaw that requires, that's like a minimum frontage requirement. So it says that on a building that's 100 feet long, which that would be 75% of the frontage, so which is the space between, the space along the street, has to be covered with a building. And the issue that starts to raise is that between that and the FAR restriction, it's very limiting on the like shape and size of the building. So you end up with a very long, narrow building. Also, it raises issues of ingress and egress, depending on the size of the, like on the configuration of the land that will then dictate the size of the building based on these specifications, because emergency vehicles may have to be able to get back behind the building. So you'll probably need 2 points of ingress and egress. And that starts to become just physically very difficult and in some instances impossible based on the land. So it just raised some interesting points. I think I had one more point. Sorry, thought I had my notes up and I don't.
I think it was
So-
about the green space that it required.
That's right. I knew there was another thing. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated today. I'm trying to get ready to go out on vacation and it's been a day. So yeah, so the open space requirement. So one thing that we had talked about was that 20% of the lot had to be landscaped green space, which is fine. So we also said though that 50% of that 20% of the space has to be in front of the building and contiguous. But I think we're going to have to make some adjustments in that regard, because if you think about, and I should have put the renderings, but if you think about like a long building, there are going to be walkways going up to it because there'll be multiple doors, because we actually require that that there have to be an entrance at least every 35 feet. That's one of the other things we put in there. So this green space is not going to be contiguous, because by the bylaw, it has to be broken up by the walkways at least to get into the building. So some of the things, so I'm really glad we went through this exercise, because that's going to have to be fixed, because it just doesn't quite work. So we've reached out. I kind of put together some of these notes, and I reached out to Judy and to Adam. Judy's very busy. We're trying to schedule a meeting, but it's not going to be for another week or two, probably to the week after next is when she's available. So hopefully I'll have another update next time just to kind of go through these things. So it's sort of, Marika and I were saying it's good and bad, because we want to, we got to a point at the Board of Selectmen meeting a couple of weeks ago where everybody was in agreement with pretty much everything, and we have a product that we're going to bring to the planning board, who are, I believe, starting hearings on Monday, but we are probably still going to have to go back and make some tweaks. So I'm really glad that we're going through this exercise with the land design architects or land design consultants, because just taking what we have and putting it into practice and making sure it all actually works, because I think the product that we started with had worked, but as we're going through and compromising among the boards and committees on different issues, we changed some numbers and said, okay, you want 50%, I want 20%, so 30%, whatever it was, which is fine, except for we just need to make sure that all of the specifications together work to actually make a building that can physically fit on a space. So we have a little bit more tweaking to do, unfortunately, but again, all good in getting this out now, while we're still kind of in this stage. That being said, I believe planning board is still moving forward on Monday with hearings. I'm going to try to get in touch with Lisa tomorrow to talk to her about some of these things. We can kind of playing phone tag, but I'm unfortunately not going to be able to be there on Monday. So I'm hoping that somebody else from the committee can be there. Again, we don't have to, we're not presenting or anything, but I would love to have somebody there to answer questions if there are any on Monday.
I should be able to make it. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to make it. But Julie, are these little tweaks really changing the concept, or are these more kind of minor adjustments to make sure that things can happen?
Yeah, I see them as minor adjustments so that they work. I don't think that they're if it doesn't work, then what's the point of all this, right? So yeah, these are we definitely see these as more minor tweaks. I don't think they're substantive. I don't think they're things that will, hopefully, obviously everyone has to agree on them, but I don't think they're things that are going to be, incur significant debate or controversy. We just want to make sure they work. And I can kind of send around more details about it with the specific codes and everything if people want. But that's where we are with that. So it's sort of one step forward, two steps back. But at the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday, they also decided to postpone the town meeting for another till November 1st. So we've got a little bit of time, which I think is a good thing to make sure we can hash this piece out of it, make sure that it all works properly, and then still have time to, have all the hearings that we need through the planning board, and, hopefully host another forum or two as we approach town meeting in the early fall to make sure people are comfortable and understand and be able to answer questions. Marika, what am I missing? I'm sorry, I'm not like.
No, I think it's I think you covered it all. It's just, I guess when we had the meeting with the architects, they had the image, which kind of made it clear. And to answer Rob also, I think it's just a matter of, because we changed some of the numbers. So it's not you just wanted to make sure that these, like for instance, the FAR together with the parking requirements, together with the facade requirements and whatever, if that works together. And I think it's a good idea to just run it by Judy Barrett one more time. And maybe, the 75% facade requirement might have to be adjusted to a slightly, lesser number. And again, I think the FAR is still kind of an issue. I mean, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but because we already have height requirements, we have setback requirements, we have parking requirements, green space requirements. Even Judy Barrett said the FAR doesn't, is kind of maybe the wrong.
And I think, and it's a tough situation because when we look at the actual potentially, developable lots or lots that, that are already commercial space or that could be commercial space, it's a very small number, and they're all very different though. And I think, one of the issues that we've run into is that in my head, I often go back to 2 Main Street, right? Which is the corner Newton and Main, the corner lot, because it's empty, right? So everybody wants something there because there's nothing there. So when I think about how a FAR of 0.35 would work there, it sounds ridiculous. Like it looks like it's going to be like, it might be 3 stories and up to 40 feet tall, but it's going to be very narrow and look sort of silly and not be a really usable or space on that property. However, I understand that if we're looking at the space at the end of Park Street, that's where the concern lies that a lower FAR might fix. So there's got to be a way to just sort of draft around that and make it so that if either by saying if a lot is more than X square feet or X acres, then this rule standard applies. If it's smaller, then this standard applies. I just want to make sure also, because for the renderings that we did put together a few years ago, we had the back of Park Street, sort of this pedestrian area with, with I think like 4 or so small structures. I want to make sure that what we're putting together actually would allow for that and that works. So we just want to make sure that we're using this document to encourage encourage the kinds of things that we want without being too restrictive, and discourage things that we don't want. So I think we just need to have one more session probably with Judy and Adam to make sure that, now that we kind of have mostly a final document in place, making sure it works and see what tweaks we need to make to protect and promote the best use of each of the parcels. So that's where we are.
So the tweaks might be the FAR as well as the frontage requirement, as well as the contiguous green space requirement in front?
Yes, the facade requirement, the green space requirement, I think those are the main ones. I had a question about how height, the architect had a question about how height was defined. We talked a little bit about parking, and whether we should look at that again, because in the rendering you put together, so the one that he put together for 11 Main Street, there's still a ton of parking in the back, which I guess is fine, but I would love to see something, where we could have nearby parking count towards the building's parcel you know, if there's street parking or if there's a public parking lot or something like that. I just want to allow for a little bit of flexibility there so that, you know, we can create more of that community downtown feel where it's not necessarily like this building has this many parking spaces and for these, you know, for these customers, and this building has this many parking spaces for these customers. I'd love to see a little bit more connectivity and flow between it. So that's another question I had.
Well, that's why we should write the letter of support for the trail so people can walk there as opposed to driving down and parking.
That's exactly. Yep. Take your bike. Mhm.
I
Yeah,
was
we
just
have a
gonna add,
beautiful, we have a beautiful bike
Michael had his
rack
hand up.
too. Sorry.
that's my actual physical hand, right? I would just add like some of these tweaks, Julie and Rob, might even be like ranges within those numbers, like not a hard 75% has to be, you know, frontage. It might be a range that allows for, you know, flexibility of the green space to come in and building to go out so that our long building can, you know, take a better shape. So it might even be languages like minimums and maximums that we have to really start drilling down on too.
Yeah, I think that's it. And again, you know, just putting it's definitely been a helpful exercise to try to put the document into practice with engineers. So I think we need to dive a little bit more into that. You know, we were all sort of like, okay, we've got a document, and I hate to have to open a can of worms again, but I don't think it is. I think it's just making sure it works, and I don't think it's controversial stuff. I think it's just, you know, making sure we understand it well and can explain it well to the planning board and the board of selectmen when we're ready to do that, to make sure we're all on the same page, so that we have a document that actually is, you know, will do what we all want it to do. So.
Yeah, it's important that we have provisions for green space and provisions for frontage. It's important that we have all these things that we want, you know, in heights and FARs, but it just, yeah, the numbers I think are, yes, those are controversial parts, but maybe we start to get into ranges.
And it's interesting about the facade requirement, like whether we actually need that or not. That was one of the points the architect raised, you know, if we have, you know, based on the other requirements, again, like the FAR, like if we've got all these other ways that we're boxed in, do we also need a frontage requirement? Judy says, you know, it helps encourage, like, you know, that sort of
building on the street. And
yeah, exactly. But again, is it necessary with all the, will we achieve that without that facade requirement, which could be a hiccup for you know, for other things. So it's just something to think about and talk about a little bit more. So we're working on it. And again, so Marika and I spoke with the land design architects. I put together an email that we sent off to Judy and Adam and Lisa on those points. And so we're kind of, I know Adam was away last week when I sent it. Judy's been super busy. So, and I'm away next week. So we're trying to figure out a time to go through them.
Since we're talking about tweaks, I have a quick question for you, Julie. And I thought we had already talked about this. So on the mixed use development part, it says the ground floor facing the street shall be used only for permitted non-residential uses, and the total gross floor area occupied by non-residential uses shall be at least 10% of the gross floor area of the structure. Now, this is the one for if we're looking for this to be a commercial bylaw more than residential. So
Yeah.
if the 10% of the gross floor area of the structure, didn't we change that to at a minimum is the maximum of 10% of the gross floor area of the structure for housing on the first floor? I thought we had changed that because this sounds like,
yeah, that is one of the other items on my list that I want to go back and look at it and probably talk about again. Because I did bring that up to Judy in my email as well. So yeah, so it says that it's talking about the depth of street level commercial space. And so the architects wondered why we added this. And I remember talking about that we might want to permit some non-commercial use, some residential use on the ground floor for handicap accessibility or things like that.
yeah, but this makes it sound like it's saying at least 10% of the floor area is
another one on my list to go back.
residential. I think we have it backwards is what is my
I think we might.
I thought we had
that might be
talked about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did put that on my list to Judy, and Judy did respond to some of my points. So she said that, you know, we usually put a maximum depth per tenant space. and that it's a mechanism for regulating what types of businesses go in there. So she said, based like as an example, like a chain, like for example, like a CVS or something, we want something really deep, but a local pharmacy wouldn't. So this would discourage more chain uses and encourage more smaller local uses, she thought. So, but again, it didn't make sense when he raised it, and I read it again. So I need to go
Yeah,
back. and
I have a problem with the way that reads. And Mr. Berger has his hand up, so.
Yeah,
I
sorry,
know he
sorry.
has
I
eight as
mentioned
well.
to Marika earlier. I have a conflict that's just starting up now, so I have to run. But I appreciate the conversation and then look forward to working with you all in the next meeting. Thank you.
Welcome to the
Thank you.
committee, and thank you for signing up. I'll talk to you
Okay.
soon.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Take care. So, yeah, I've talked to a couple of people have approached me, and the way that they read it is like I do, that it just sounds backwards. So I'd like
Yeah,
to.
no,
like to address
that's on
that.
my list.
Cool. Does anybody else remember us talking about that? I remember we wanted to leave 10% on the ground floor in case we had any ADA compliance issues for an apartment, and that was why. But I thought it was a maximum instead of a minimum, at least. But anyway. So we'll check that one out later. Cool.
Yeah, I remember talking about it just so we can get into the building, just so we could have a lobby to get up and into
Yeah.
the upper floors. We were talking about mixed use and housing on the upper floors. So
Cool. All right. That was my only question. All right. Any more on the status of the, because we're going to be talking, we have a discussion still next down there. So if we have, I guess we could handle it all right now instead
Yeah,
of,
do we is somebody going to be available on Monday?
I should be,
You should
barring
be.
any,
Okay, thank
barring
you.
anything, I
Oh
should
my
be.
God. Okay, awesome. Yeah. And again, we're not required to speak, but I'd love to
I'd
have
like
it
to
in
be
the
there just in
round.
case they have any questions for us or
Yeah,
anything.
I
Well,
agree.
so-
And I'm gonna try to connect with Lisa before that, just on, because I haven't heard feedback from her on this list of open issues yet. And I assume she's usually at those meetings too. But I just want to kind of make sure everyone's still on the same page. Because I don't want to scare people by saying, oh, now we want to make more changes just when we're in agreement. But again, I think that these aren't, I don't think these are substantive. I think these are just minor corrections that kind of need to be made. So
Yeah, I agree.
agree.
Okay. Any more on that for now?
Nope.
All right.
And I love everything that Catherine McKee was talking about. I think all that stuff's great. And that's sort of like where our next step is going. So the timing's really good.
I agree. All right. Coordinators report.
Yeah, real quickly. I had a great meeting Wednesday with the whole micro enterprise grant community. If everyone remembers, we received the micro enterprise grant a while ago. We had applied together with 22 other communities, and Ashland is kind of the lead community in this whole enterprise. So we have a meeting once a month nowadays. The grant is still ongoing and will be available till December 1st. It's interesting to see there are many communities there are some communities who have basically given away have given all the grants. There are some communities, quite a few, that still have a lot of money left in their to give out to local micro enterprises. Southborough, to date, we've awarded 12 grants, and we currently have 2 more applications. The thing is that I think the next step, and that's why I'm bringing this up, the idea is for us, for the 23 communities, to kind of have a last push and approach the last time to see if people want to apply for these grants. And after July 1st, if we would agree to all pool the money together into a regional, funding pool. So whoever then applies, first come, first serve, gets the money, because we want to avoid the situation where we are stuck with, or certain towns or communities are left with a lot of money, which in the end will go back to the state. So for Southborough, actually we did pretty well. We only have, after these 2 applications, if they get approved, we'll have about $13,000 left. So I plan to approach businesses again for the next couple of weeks. But the question to you is, would the EDC agree to use whatever we have left to put that in the community, the regional fund, for use for, within these 23 communities?
I think it's a great idea. I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that. I think that's the right thing to do, because it'd be wrong for us to have money that we have to turn back when there's another town that could use the money because they have people that need
Yeah.
it. Do we need to
All
take a
right.
vote on that?
Yeah, I think we need to take a vote on it. And I think, Ashlyn, then I'll go to, I'm not sure if the Board of Selectmen need to take a vote on it, or if Mark Purple can just write a letter saying that Southborough approves releasing the funds that are left as of July 1st. I mean, the date, it hasn't been considered, but I think I'll approach it. But if we can, the EDC should definitely vote on it, and then I'll take it to Mark Purple and take it from there.
Do I have a motion to pool our leftover micro enterprise grant monies into a community fund?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, call it. Oh, go ahead, Chris. You're muted, Chris. Still muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Just, I've got a brother out in Naperville, Illinois, who has his own business. And what's interesting is people have come up to him, like the Chamber of Commerce president, one of his bank colleagues, who were aware of these grants and advised him of it. And I think maybe you're already doing it, Marika, but letting Karen Chapman of the Coeur d'Alene Chamber know about availability for members who are from Southborough, businesses who are members, or I can't think of the woman's last name, Sue's, over at the Marlborough Bank, right there in the corner of Newton, letting the banks know, like Central Bank in, I think they're in Westboro, they deal with a lot of potential small businesses that if we inform them, it might be another better way to get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we spoke to Sue from what is it, Main Street Bank, and yeah, so that's a great. I think that was great. I mean, to let as many people know as possible. But I think Southborough didn't do too bad, actually.
How much, what was our total, Marika?
We applied for $204,000. Some of that goes to MGCC and Ashland because they're managing the monies. But we are we'll be left with about 13,000. So, and micro enterprises can apply for up to $25,000.
Wow.
So I think we did pretty well.
Yeah, Marika, maybe you've done it and I haven't seen it. It would be a great thing to post on the blog and to notify the community advocate and the Metro West Daily News who's been the recipients and how much is left. Maybe you've already done it and I didn't see it.
I think we did.
It's in the June newsletter.
Yeah, she did. Of course she did. So, all right. Any more discussion on that? On putting the leftover monies into a community fund with the other 23 communities? None? All right, I'm going to call a roll call vote as I see it. Julie,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Robert,
Yes.
and myself, aye. It passes unanimously. Excellent. Anything else, Marika?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Sorry. Project Manager, Claire, do you have a report you want to give?
I'm following up on the information that I sent out earlier today. I don't have any reporting on the zoning other than what has happened at the Board of Selectmen meeting as far as turning the documents over to the planning board. But I did send out a write-up today on what's happened and the status with the wastewater, which is moving along. As I mentioned in the email that I sent out, it is the consultant is running about 2 weeks behind, but I don't think that that's really going to be a problem. I have talked to his next up, so to speak, and just to emphasize the fact that this has to be all wrapped up by the middle to third week in July.
So, Claire, I had a little free time today, so I had a little light reading of that 28-page report. There's nothing. Is there any information in there of how many of the septic systems are failing or close to failing downtown that'll be in the report as well? Because this is all just what we could do or can do, but there's nothing saying when we need to do it or.
That's a good question, John. And the reason that it doesn't have anything in there is because when the pre-feasibility report that I had done prior to contracting the work out to Weston and Sampson, one of the things it clearly said, which Paul Pazinski agreed on, is that the failure rate in the downtown area is very low. Failure rates are determined or are found when property is being sold, because of the way that I mean, if you went down to the Board of Health office, every single property has a file down there. So what it does is it shows what the status is of each of those individual properties. So there isn't a failure rate which would compel anybody to actually say, boy, this really makes a whole lot of sense. Don't forget, hooking up to a sewer system is expensive. And if you have a system that is not a problem, as a homeowner, you are not looking for problems.
Right. Well,
So that, I mean, does that answer your question?
No, absolutely
Okay.
not, actually.
Okay. Oh.
It doesn't. I just think that we should have the urgency on this. Do we need it now? Do we not need it now? Because that's a pretty big expense. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be by a bit. But I hadn't thought about tying an engineer and things like that. But it would be nice to just say, I don't know, for me personally, to get on board with that, I'd like to see what's failing, what's not failing, or what he thinks is failing and not failing. Just to have that information in there.
But, well, that information was provided to them prior to the
Right.
study. And that was something that Paul
But I think-
Pazinski agreed on. There is no urgency.
But can we have that in this report from Weston and Sampson is what I'm saying. Because it's not in there. I just think we need to have something that says it.
Okay. That's a good point. Paul Pazinski has provided his review, which is the technical review
Yeah.
of what they put together. That was one of his recommendations that was in there, to say that there is no compelling reason to make any changes. So, for example, when you guys went over to the town of Weston
Yep.
and looked at what they did there, they were under an order because of a problem that they had where they had to do something.
Exactly.
Southborough is under no order at all. And Paul Pazinski wants that in the report, that there is no order from the state that needs to address septic systems.
Okay. Yeah, if we could have I'd like to have something that says that in the document, if possible. I don't know anybody else's thought on that.
Well, that's and one of the things in the email that I put together was the engineer has not come back, which he is late on, has not come back with compiling his report with Paul Pazinski's report, because quite frankly, we all know Paul is the guy who knows all this stuff.
He knows his crap.
There you go. You couldn't put it any better.
Yeah. So, all right, I apologize for jumping the gun
No,
on.
no problem. It's a, hey, I think the thing that's really good is you read it.
I know, right?
Look at it that way,
Yeah.
beats the heck out of me.
So, okay, I'll watch for that then.
Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting you.
No problem. No. Chris has his hand up.
Chris.
Yeah, just, I know this has been passed around perhaps before, but Tony Kwan, who owns the medical center, has said verbally a couple of years ago that if it wasn't a rest, he's willing to consider working with the town to provide sewer support with his system. But however, if it was a restaurant, he couldn't help out. But just, I don't know if that's helpful information, but it's certainly something.
Absolutely, Chris. And here's the answer that has been discussed. So here's the answer with that. Number one, Tony is in China. And because of the border restrictions and everything, he's in China and nobody can get a hold of him over here. Okay.
Not even by phone?
I don't know. I mean, that hasn't been my thing to do that. But I will tell you, the question came up in terms of the types of treatment that exist. He will take Southborough's townhouse trash, so to speak, or whatever, but he won't take any of the commercial stuff. Now, the engineer can provide recommendations for treatment. It's like you're so instead of taking it right from you flushing the sink into Tony's totally clean septic system, 80,000 gallons, what type of treatment would have to be done? Okay, that is a possibility. So that has to be one of the options. And then, but there's no sense in even looking into that if Tony doesn't agree to the concept. Anything else?
At least it's an option we can explore, when he gets back. Which
Yeah.
is nice. So,
well, and then the next part of it, which is the last part of the addendum, I don't know what you want to call it. It seemed that there was an issue in terms of what it was called, but is a cost analysis that Weston and Sampson is putting together in terms of some of the options that you have. Some people call it a sewer district, some people call it, whatever, and also doing drawings in terms of what can be done. They've already come up with a drawing of what, in other words, with the road construction that is planned for the downtown, with the Chapter 90 money. One of the things, and we've talked about this before in EDC meetings, is that there has to be a sleeve that's put underneath the road. So one of the drawings that they've come up with is actually, per recommendation of Paul Pazinski, 2 sleeves, and which it takes the wastewater, so to speak, from 2 different directions.
makes sense.
Well, thank you. Wasn't my idea.
Okay, anything else anybody else have any questions for Claire or the wastewater stuff that's still coming? So it sounds like basically the draft we got is just a very rough draft, and hopefully they'll get back to us with
Actually, no.
incorporating-
The one in the email that I sent out, the draft that was received, or the report that was received June 15th, is Weston and Sampson's report. From a technical standpoint, I had Paul Pazinski review it because he's the one who knows that stuff. He made recommendations based on which he and I sat down and discussed. Actually, Marika was there too, because hey, the more people that learn about the poop of the scoop here,
Yeah.
much better, you know? But
So they're going to
anyway,
incorporate his comments and questions,
yes, yeah.
and we should see that in a couple of weeks.
Yes,
Maybe
there,
a month?
you should, no. You should see it that, as I said in the email, the engineer is on vacation this week. I told him and his next up, we need that ASAP. He's had it since the end of June. So if he needs to have Paul Pazinski on a conference call, I'll set that up.
Great.
But let's get moving on it, so to speak.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody besides me have any more questions? Okay, then moving on. This is my agenda. Getting close to my favorite part of the agenda tonight. What I think we should do now is do the approval of the June 17th minutes. And we didn't list the approval of February 12th minutes on the agenda, so I don't know if we can vote on those this evening or not. So I think I'll table that.
John,
Okay.
just as a note, and I only know, excuse me, I only know this because of doing the recording clerk for the advisory. They have approved minutes that were not on the agenda, so it's your call. But I just wanted
You
to
know
let
what?
you know.
Why don't we can vote on them, and if there's an issue and we have to re-vote on them, we can do that, I guess, then.
There you go.
And so, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of June 17th as written?
I so
guess-
move.
Any discussion? All right, call it as I see it again. Roll call vote. Julie?
I think you need a second, unless I missed
Second.
it.
I thought I
Yeah,
had it.
I'll
I
second.
thought I had. Thank you. Sorry. Any discussion? None. Call it as I see it. Julie?
Yeah.
Michael?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes,
Rob?
Yes.
And myself, pass. I pass unanimously. All right, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of February 12th, 2021 as written?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Julie?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes,
And Rob?
Yes.
And myself, yes, passed unanimously. Thank you. So that's taken care of. Do we have anything, more on the downtown district proposed bylaw? Did we take care of all that? I apologize. I skipped that by accident because I thought we had talked about it under the members report. Anything else? Because that's just on my agenda down there as a separate item, or we got that all covered for the night? Okay, I think we have that all covered. All right. Election of committee officers and renewal of terms. Vote may be taken. As I've told you all, I need to step down as chair, and I've talked to all of you, and I talked to Rob, who said he would be a great fit, and he looks forward to doing it. I might have embellished that a little bit, but without further ado, I'd like to take a vote for committee officers for the next year. I think we should put a term on it too, because, like right now, it just kind of goes for whoever. I think maybe we should do a 1-year term and then redo it. That's what the selectmen do. I know planning has had the same chair forever. Most committees change it every couple of years. They take a vote every year, but every 2-3 years, they try to change it up a little bit. That's what we did on advisory. So that I will leave up to the next chair to figure out how they want to handle that. But moving forward, I'd like to nominate Robert Anderson as chair.
second it.
If he will accept.
I will accept. Yes, thank you. Looking forward to it. We'll rely on people who have done it in the past to help make sure I do everything correctly. And I will practice the reading that I have to do at the beginning of every meeting before showing up.
The only
Pursuant to Governor Baker's so-and-so, right?
Yeah. You know, I don't know if you have to do it anymore, but I'd rather be safe and do it and not need it than need it and not done it. So,
Yeah.
but pretty soon we'll be meeting in person again on sometime, so that's great. So do I have a second?
Second,
Great. Any discussion? All right, I'm gonna call this it. Julie?
Yes, enthusiastically.
Me too, yeah. Mr. Moorhead,
Yes.
Chris,
yes, and thank you.
and myself, yes. Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Passes
Yeah.
unanimously. Do we want to elect a vice chair in case when we were on advisory, we had a vice chair in case anybody wasn't available to make a meeting. It's sometimes the chair. I think it helps out because I don't know logistically if you're allowed to have a meeting if the chair is not there and you don't have a vice chair named to handle it. Or in case Rob quits and hates it or something, that way somebody else gets moved in. So do we want to do that? Do you not want to do that? I leave that up to the new voted in chair.
I would like to have a vice chair, simply because it offers us a little bit of flexibility. My goal is to be able to make every meeting. So the vice chair might just be there in case I have to duck out early or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's,
So,
you never know. It's great. In my opinion, it's great to have. I'm a big advocate of a vice chair, so. Do I have anybody that wants to step up to be vice chair?
well, I've always found that sometimes it's nice to have the vice chair there to then transition into the chair. So because you and Julie had done it in the past, I was wondering maybe if Michael or if we thought Alan might be a good person to think about as a vice chair to kind of prep him and get him thinking about that. Or
I like that idea. Do
I
you
think
want
it's less me though, so.
we can, you want to table the discussion then on that? But I think that's a good idea. You know, I think Alan would be, like he said, he'd be interested, just not this year, he just got on. And you know, whether it's next year, the year after, I think so. So do you want to table the discussion for that then until we have, I think we should have Alan here because, you know, I've been on committees where it's be there or be chair. And
No, exactly. Yeah, no, we can table that to the next meeting in August.
okay. I don't know if I should be taking these notes or if you should now. All right. Any unfinished business? Any new business?
Yes, and I'm not sure if as a chair whether or not I can do this, but and I will also put the caveat at the beginning. I do work for an organization, Mass Development. We have just released a grant for real estate technical assistance. And as part of that grant, municipalities can apply. One of the things that they can apply for is hiring and getting a consultant to work on writing district improvement financing language in preparation for bringing it to town meeting and kind of doing the research. We already had Rob Dolan present to the group, so we're already maybe that little bit further ahead. I'm not sure if we want to consider an application. I would obviously have to recuse myself, but the due date is August 6th. So it's a quick turnaround.
Well,
But the awards go from 5 to 50,000. And the way it's set up is that people are hired, they assign consultants from a stable to do the work. So it wouldn't be like Claire or Marika doing an awful lot of that. It's more kind of managing the consultants. And it's something that I think maybe we want to explore.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great idea. You know, I'm all about grant money and all about trying to have somebody else do some of our work instead of us doing everybody else's and things. So I like it. I like it a lot.
Now, in this particular case, I suppose we ought to take a vote to direct Marika to explore applying for the grant it is due by August 6th. So we're not going to have a meeting before then. So if we do want to apply, we probably ought to think about giving her some direction.
All right. Jesus, do you do that now that you've been voted in, or do I handle it till the end of the meeting?
I don't know, but I would have to recuse myself anyway because it's my organization.
All right. So why don't I make a motion to advise Marika to look into what was the name of the grant?
It's the Real Estate Technical Assistance Grant.
The real estate.
I will send Marika an email on it.
The Real Estate Technical Assistance Grant. So you could make the motion, but you can ask for a second.
Oh, can I get a second on that?
Second. Second.
Okay, now to just gonna ask if there's any discussion.
Is it project specific, Rob, or?
No, it can be any number of things. It could be things like surplus property reuse. It can help on creating a business improvement district, but that's not really applicable to our downtown. But it's any type of real estate services, feasibility analysis. Like if we wanted to talk about feasibility on Route 9, what it has to do is tie into a real estate function.
Okay.
And do you set your own dollar amounts of what you want to ask for? I want $50,000 to study the XYZ.
Yeah, exactly. I can distribute the link to the full board, but and I'm going to use this in a general context and not this in particular. Anytime you have the opportunity to ask for money, aim higher than lower. And so if there's a range of grants from 5 to 50,000 for any type of grant, aim high. Yeah.
Can always go down, can't go up.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, just got to go to it. So we've had.
So I guess we're going to a vote. I'm going to call him like I see him.
Doing great.
Yeah. John.
Hi.
Yes. Julie.
Yep.
Michael.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
And I am going to recuse myself since it is my organization. And I will distribute things to the committee as well as Marika. And Marika, if it turns out that it isn't from a time standpoint or from a logistical standpoint able to get there, there's no requirement that we do it. But I think it might be a great opportunity for us. And it might fit some of the stuff we've already done. So fabulous.
What I would suggest too is that you file a perceived conflict of interest with the clerk, even though you don't, there isn't one. And then offline, I'll give you the phone number to the ethics commission. They're great. You know, you call them, they have teams of lawyers on board. They'll call you right back and tell you whether if you have any questions or whether you should recuse yourself from a discussion or any of that stuff. They'll talk to you and they keep it on record. So if anybody questions it, you can say, well, I talked to the ethics commission and they said that this, and they'll have it on record talking to you. So it covers your butt. So I'll talk you through all that offline tomorrow on things like that.
Okay, and now that would be excellent. It's just from a timing standpoint, this is our only meeting before, you know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I agree, but I would just, that way, I mean, you've already said it, you recused yourself, but I'd just fill out, you've only been chair for 7 minutes now.
Right.
So yeah, I know you haven't had time to fill out the form yet,
Yeah.
but just to cover your butt, I would just to have it in there. So
Yeah.
no one can say, oh, he's did this, and, you know, be very open about it.
Okay.
The only thing we have left on the agenda, I don't know if you have it in front of you, is public comment.
Yeah, so going to turn it over to the attendees. Is there anyone in the public that would like to say anything?
Can you see in there? I don't know if Mr. Miller's here. Ms.
I've got
Littell, and
Mr.
Stiver.
Miller, Mimi, and Sam Stivers.
I don't see anything going up.
Yeah, I don't see any hands.
And I don't see any thing. Okay.
So public comment. Now, next on the agenda, other business that may properly come before the committee. Don't think we have anything there.
Not sure. Nothing
Okay.
yet.
And the next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, August 12th at 7:30 in the evening. This is of course subject to change, the ability to get a quorum. But with that, I guess, looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
That's the first time I've got to do that in like 3 years.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Congratulations.
I guess we're gonna do a roll call vote, as always. John,
Aye.
Michael,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
real quick, I'd like to thank everybody for all your help for the last couple of years that I've been chair. And
Thank you, John, for
done.
stepping in again to do this. You've been awesome and so on top of it and such a great ambassador for the group.
I'm not going anywhere. I'll still do everything I can. It's just, time's becoming a little harder lately, but better. Getting there.
Grateful for all the hard work you put into it.
Oh, everybody
You're-
does. We got a
You're a
great
good one,
group.
John. You're a
No,
good
you
one.
guys, no, we have a good, I like this committee. I think we've got a good group of people and I feel like we're making progress some ways. We got a long way to go. I think once Route 9 comes, as long as we can, I hope to still be able to work on that with everybody. But it's been fun. You guys are great. Mic drop off. No.
So I guess we'll see. John, thanks again. We'll obviously be talking more
Call me-
often as kind of get this chair stuff taken care of. But
Call me whenever you want, and anytime. I have my cell with me always. So whatever you need, anytime. And, I'll just talk you through what I think you need to do and moving forward. I do know that we need to send Jim an email saying that there was a roll call vote, who was here, who took it, and when he was nominated, and that how long the term is for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send that to Jim. Don't worry. Yeah, I got that. Together with the minutes, we send it.
I'll let you know when we talk, Rob. I'll let you know like the administrative stuff that you got to take care of, like Marika's review is in May and just things like that. And you can't make it all perfect. I've tried.
yeah. Okay, fabulous.
Marika, by
Okay.
the way, you're great. Thank you so much for
thank you.
everything
Oh,
you've
thank
done.
you, John.
I couldn't have done anything that I've
Still,
done
don't
without
worry.
you. So, all
Thank
right.
you. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, Doug.
Bye.
Bye. Mosquitoes are getting bad.